So hey there, it's David from David in Progress, and today is a bit of a special day. It's somewhat of an anniversary, and I just couldn't let the day go by without making a video, and I hope you don't mind my sharing it with you here. You see, today is the 1 year anniversary of the day that for me the pandemic really hit home, and I knew, oh my gosh, this is real. And it happened to be the result of a basketball game. Today is the 1 year anniversary of when the Oklahoma City Thunder game was shut down as a result of one of the Utah players testing positive for COVID-19. And for me and for a lot of people around where I live, and really for a big part of the country, that was when things really took off. It was just a few hours later that the NBA season was shut down and everything else went into motion with the shutdowns. It was a pretty traumatic day. For me personally, at that time in my life, I had just started a new job. I changed positions. I did after 15 years in my previous job, I had been thinking about 2020 and how great 2020 was going to be. And I had this goal plan. I called it Vision 2020, and I was going to be bold. And I decided to change careers. So I did a pivot. And I went from being a manager after 15 years to an individual contributor in HR and with Sprint. And Sprint was going through a merger with T-Mobile. So here we go, it's March of 2020. And suddenly, I'm in a new job. My company is starting to go through a merger, and the pandemic hits. And I'm a bit of a journaler, and I broke out my journal to look at what I wrote down that day, and I have it right here. So here's what I put down that day. Another crazy day due to the virus scare. Last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder were about to play a game, and it was suddenly canceled due to a player for Utah having been diagnosed with the virus. Shortly thereafter, the entire season was suspended, and along with most other events around the country. Meanwhile, the government has banned all travel to the U.S. from Europe, and the stock market has continued to crash. Many cities and states are declaring emergencies, including Kansas City. The Sprint campus is shutting down. Colleges are also closing and having students switch to virtual. I could keep going, but wow. I'm sure in your mind you're probably thinking back to what that day was like. And man, what a year it has been. And just a few days later, I wrote this. A lot to talk about here. The city, the state, and the nation are all in official states of emergency. This is truly an historic time. The weekend was a big change with the addition of churches closing, all gatherings of more than 50 people being canceled, schools closed, and now restaurants and bars being forced to close. We went to 3 different grocery stores and saw empty shelves everywhere. I'm sure you can also remember the panic that was taking place, the rush for the toilet paper and water and all kinds of things. It felt truly like the world was falling apart, and sadly, it was only the beginning. The months that would come after that brought the social unrest that we've experienced, the riots that took place, all the political stuff, and if you're on Facebook or any of those social media sites, the people and all the anger and the hate that just became so prevalent for such a long time. It was definitely a time of fear. But now, a year later, I think it's a very appropriate time to look back and think about what actually happened that maybe wasn't so negative, that perhaps turned out positive for you and for me too. That's part of what I'm doing today. Back to my journal. Here's something else that I wrote on that same day. I am so very thankful to be debt-free and in a position where we have an emergency fund. I have far less fear than many folks, thanks to being prepared for the what-ifs in life. I have to think that all the timing of what is happening is just perfect for whatever it is that I'm needing. And then I have in quotes, when the rest of the world is in fear, we open the gift we have from God, peace. And I don't know where I got that quote, but it must have been very meaningful to me at the time, and because I ended this way. I'm going to dig deeper into my faith and into my life and see how this time can be something positive. 12 months later, I can think of so many things that were negative. True. I can also think of so many things that were positive. We couldn't take a vacation like we planned, so we pivoted and did something else that turned out to be absolutely amazing. Later in the fall, my wife and I were able to take a nice trip through Colorado and see trees, and there were the aspen trees changing, and there were very few people there, and mostly just us, and it was a very special time. In May, our son's graduation was canceled from college after all that work. And what we did instead is here in our backyard, we had a virtual graduation, which turned out to be just a lot of fun and was great. He ended up being able to get a fantastic job too, so that worked out well. I could go on and on and on. And for me, it's the law of expectations. If you expect good things to happen, if you look at life in a way that, okay, this sucks, and that's true, but from the suckitude, something good will happen. It will happen. You find what you're looking for. And I guarantee you, if you look back into 2020, you could come up with a really long list of things that actually were good for you. And all this is not over. So it's also a good time to think about all the lessons that you learned from what you've gone through in this last year, and what you can do and what you will do as we move through 2021 and hopefully better days. But regardless, no matter what happens, you know that you have resilience, that you've learned some lessons, and that things can be good. Here's another quote, and this is going to be the last one. This is an actual quote that I put into my blog on that day, or in my journal. It says here, "I will live this day as if it is my last. This day is all that I have, and these hours are now my eternity. I greet the sunrise with the cries of joy as a prisoner who is reprieved from death. I lift my arms with thanks for this priceless gift of a new day." And that's by Og Mandino, who is the writer of the book called The Greatest Salesman. So I lift my hands in joy. And if you think about every single day is your day that you can own, and that I can own, and that no matter what's coming at me, no matter what negative thing is coming my way, there is beauty in it, and there's something that can be positive. I may not see it today. I may not have seen it in March of 2020, but now in March of 2021, I can truly look back and see it. And that's my hope for you, that you will take a few minutes on this very special day, this day of this anniversary of the true blow up of the pandemic, and look backwards at what was actually good for what happened, what lessons you learned, and what things you may want to do differently. And then look forward to what you're going to do. And for me, I'm going to do that too, for what I'm going to do. That in this next year, I can just make it spectacular, that no matter what happens, it's going to be great. So, on this day, March 11th, 2021, we look forward to the new year. We could care less about these pandemics and all the other stuff that's coming, because we're going to have a positive plan and expect things to be good. So that's what I had to say. I hope you got some value out of this. I would really love to hear from you, and I'm sure others would as well, for encouragement. Leave a comment down below. What is something in 2021 that actually turned out to be really positive, or in 2020 as a result of everything that happened? What was good about the pandemic? What was good about all this stuff? I'd really love to hear about it, but more importantly, I think others would like to hear from you about what was good in this time. Thank you for watching, and if you got value from this, please share it with someone, but more importantly, leave that comment, give me a thumbs up, whatever, you know that stuff. And I just wish you the very, very best. I guess the first question is, where is all this gray hair coming from? I can see on the camera. Hey, Blue Jay.